Sorry, my clock says 7.
You're all set.
Ready?
I'm in a parallel dimension apparently.
Thank you, young lady.
Thanks.
You can get started.
Oh, they caught.
Okay, perfect.
She didn't recognize the number.
No, she was in the reception area. She got stopped with some questions.
Good morning.
Hey,
Good morning.
Good morning.
can you hear us okay, Michelle?
I can hear me.
Yep. Okay. All right, Glenn, what do you got?
All right, recording is started, so we'll get going with the meeting. First and foremost, I have some good financial news and some bad financial news. So we'll start out with the bad. And the bad is that we received notification from Maine Municipal that the state has dramatically underfunded the property tax freeze program, that stabilization that's now gone, but was in effect for this past year's taxes, to the tune of about $15 million. So we will only be receiving 56% of the reimbursement initially. The hope is that the 131 legislature will appropriate the 15 million so that we can receive, us and other municipalities can receive the remainder of the funding. So for us, our total was 400,000. So of the 400,000 that the state owes us, we'll be receiving 224,000 of that. And hopefully, with this current legislature, they'll appropriate the rest of the funds so that we'll get the remaining 44% in the spring. But so that was the bad news. Good news, we did, I forwarded the email. It does appear that Hancock County, as well as several other counties, qualified for possible reimbursement for the damages we received from the storm from the 18th. So we'll be continuing to monitor that and hopefully get some reimbursement for street work and street lights and some of the other damages that we saw throughout town as a result of that storm. So that was the good news.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Is that only for the municipality or residents as well?
That particular fund is just for the municipality. Yep. And we roughly, our figures somewhere between 40 and 50,000 is what we had between road work, ditching and culverts and streetlights predominantly. And it reimburses for man hours, equipment use, material use, and the school will have some as well. The roof itself won't be covered because of their insurance. It's covered by their insurance, but some of the other results of the storm and damage that were not covered by insurance will be potentially reimbursed through FEMA. So, one thing, so a couple other things. The Recreation Committee met earlier in the week, and they are planning, they want to plan a winter carnival, which we've had in the past. Tammy, you can attest to it because I know you were very involved in
Yep.
planning and execution of that years ago. So they want to bring that back. It's kind of fizzled out the last few years because it's kind of hard to have a winter carnival when you don't have snow or, you know, it's very weather dependent. So they're talking about bringing that back. Well, there was discussion about, for this year, because it's too late now to plan an event like that, they talked about utilizing some of their current funds for a fireworks display in February. So I had discussions with Matt and Eric, who's the chair of the rec committee, and they were going to go back to the committee to try to have more conversation. I explained that we are currently in a spending freeze, so it really wasn't practical for us to authorize the expenditure of, I think they have $3,800 that they were talking about for a 15, 20-minute fireworks display.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
So my hope is that they're going to reconsider and potentially we can encumber those funds for their upcoming budget year so that they can utilize those funds for the Winter Carnival. But they were going to go back to the group and have more discussion about it. I told them that based on our spending freeze, I wouldn't make a decision in a silo. I would bring it back to this committee for your input before I made a decision one way or the other whether we would appropriate the funds or not. So just kind of put it on your radar that we may have more discussions about that if they do decide to move forward with it. My opinion is that it's not a good expenditure of funds, particularly in the situation where we're in a spending freeze for departments, school department as well as city departments, to not spend any money other than what's necessary for operations. So more discussions to be had on that. I think that the funds would be better carried over to next year so that they can plan a whole event and maybe culminate the event with fireworks. But just to have a fireworks display in February, I'm just not sure what type of attendance we're likely to get for that type of event where it's just the fireworks. If there are other things leading up to the fireworks, I think you have a better chance of getting some attendance and people appreciating the effort. So
I agree with that. We before I left, it turned into COVID, and we had canceled the Winter Carnival that year because of COVID. There was some money that was, usually the fireworks were always funded by outside agencies, that we would do some fundraising for it. And I didn't know if we still have that money, because I don't remember a fireworks display going on since I left, but that doesn't mean much either.
yeah.
So I didn't know if there were any funds available in the grants, or it was just a special revenue fund, so.
I don't know, I'd have to look.
Okay.
I don't recall. We have had one fireworks display, but it was not us. It was a Jesus Reigns organization that did
Okay.
fireworks one year. But the city has not done fireworks in my tenure.
Okay.
So I know that we haven't
Okay.
expended any funds for that purpose.
Has there ever, excuse me, has there ever been any connection or any thought, I guess I could ask, but the Winter Carnival thing is really a risk, total risk. And maybe that could be maybe there could be a bigger parade, tree lighting process. Maybe it could be included in that, maybe not, but the Winter Carnival thing, boy, that's a tough thing. If that fireworks display went on after the tree lighting or parade or what have you, that might be a better venue. But I'm asking, not
Yep.
stating.
Yeah, I know. I had a meeting earlier in the week with some downtown business owners, Heart of Ellsworth, the Chamber, myself, planning and economic development. We met, and a lot of the conversation was around the parade, the lighting in the downtown, both Christmas decorations and lightings, and ways that the city can participate along with those organizations, the business owners, the Chamber and Heart of Ellsworth, to do more around the holiday season, both decorating and event planning and what have you. So I know the Christmas parade was part of that discussion. Halloween was part of that discussion. And so I know that the Heart of Ellsworth is involved, mainly involved with the decoration of High Street, the lighting and what have you. So we had some conversations about the poles and some electrical issues with the poles and funding opportunities, businesses getting more involved. And so I know there is some interest in the downtown to do more. And there was talk about our recreation committee as well as the Heart of Ellsworth has like I think it's like a decoration committee or something. I don't think it's decoration, I forget exactly what they call it, but a committee anyway that.
Beautification.
It'll say
Yeah,
beautification.
that works on the Christmas lighting and what have you, so, and there was talk about, more communication between those groups. So there is definitely movement to do more around the holiday season, particularly in the downtown. So that may play into something with the rec committee and the tree lighting and the parade and everything, so. There was also in that conversation, we talked about lighting issues, not Christmas lighting, but lighting issues along Main Street with lack of lighting or need for improvements in the lighting, signage for pedestrians. They talked about wanting to bring back banners on the light poles and some other things, so. It was an interesting meeting, and there definitely seems to be an interest among at least some of the downtown business owners to form a organization of their own, separate from Heart of Ellsworth, that's more business centric. So that was kind of the crux of the meeting, to have a conversation about that desire. So stay tuned on that, I guess. There's just know that there is some movement going on with some of the downtown businesses to get more involved and to be more active and more interactive with the city to make some of these improvements to the downtown area, downtown specific. And we talked quite a bit during that meeting about the VPI program with DOT that is currently in the planning stages, which is a significant project if we undertake that, to do a whole host of improvements to the downtown. Software updates are still moving forward. Cassell is full steam ahead. They'll be on site, not next week, but the second week of February, to work heavily with the finance staff, but also with other department management team members to go live with Cassell in the coming weeks. So that is very exciting, but also quite involved and quite taxing. In addition to that, the payroll software is in the home stretch of getting that final launch and all of the information current on that, so that we can flip the switch and have all departments utilizing that software for payroll. And then finally, yesterday I I sat in on a webinar for federal infrastructure funding opportunities for local governments and municipalities in the state of Maine. It was sponsored by the DOT, and learned about a couple of new funding opportunities that are available and some that are coming. So we'll be paying close attention to those to see what, if any, of those funding opportunities the city can take advantage of for different projects. So that is what I have for finance.
Right.
Yep.
All right, so I've been working on, I've actually been doing a lot of accounting to get as much of the fiscal year 24 accounting ready to go into Excel. I also attended a half-day webinar for the water department. I met with PD on some budget items for fiscal year '24 and fiscal year '25. And we've been working just a lot on getting ready for Cassell, discussing workflow, process, things like that, the way that we're gonna be doing things in Cassell. I'm working on getting the paving estimates into the capital improvement plan. And we got a letter yesterday from DOT about our reimbursement for Christian Ridge, that they wanted to because the final cost of the project exceeded the original spitballed estimate. I had to write a special letter saying that we're responsible for any amount over the original estimate, and we're gonna pay all the bills so that they will release this money, which is insane because I gave them all the bills that we had already paid, requesting just the original amount, which was $475,000, which was half of that estimated $950. So that's, hopefully we will have that money really soon because of course we need it. And then coming up, I'm working on getting the rest of payroll, or getting payroll bridged into Munis and then back out of Munis and into Cassell. We're still working on, just haven't been able to get everybody lined up that needs to do that. And I'm working with Cassell on multiple issues, so the finance department's gonna go live before anybody else. So we're gonna do our first warrant in Cassell in February. So yeah, it's exciting. I'm just excited to have all the accounting in one place and be accurate, precisely accurate. And I think other than that, that's pretty much my life right there.
Did you have any interviews this week, or?
I think I have a person.
You do, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
He is basically general manager, CFO for a multi-site nonprofit in Florida, and they want to move up here. So,
Okay.
and he's stayed on us to make a decision. So, I'd say he's enthusiastic. He has great references. He has a great demeanor. He's very very calm, laid back. So, hopefully we can get him. He's in the range of what we're offering.
Good.
We were satisfied with that. So as long as I can find housing up here, I'd say that that's going to be a good deal. I have to talk to Carrie today. She had one last reference to check. And then we actually have another candidate that's really great too. We hadn't heard back from his references, so it's going to come down to the two of them. And we'll probably have one more meeting about it. We like them both. The second guy has a lot more analytical experience, which I think after we get the new software implemented is when we're going to start looking at the spend and figuring out what we're spending on what. And he's very good at that. He's got a lot of experience in that, so I kind of like to have him. But,
Right.
we need both. We only have to pick one, so we have
Right.
to pick the best candidate.
Something popped into my head. Woodard and Curran reached out to us earlier in the week about the High Street Pump Station project. It was supposed to be, bids were supposed to be opened in January. We're postponing the bid openings for a month because there's a problem with the federal funding requirement for to buy American, and we thought that our project would be grandfathered out of that requirement because of when the project was formulated and the process started to do this project was before that law was implemented. But the EPA has been telling Woodard and Curran that we are going to have to meet that requirement. So when that information was shared with the vendors, 2 of the 3 vendors that were submitting proposals withdrew, and the third was not confident that they were going to be able to get an electrician to be able to bid on the project because of that requirement. And if they did, the likelihood that the expense was going to be far greater than what we had planned on and what we had budgeted. So, what it incurring is continuing to discuss that issue with the EPA and see if we can in fact get qualified as grandfathered in based on when the process began for this project. So, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can convince them that we should be grandfathered and then we can move the project forward without that requirement. But if it is a requirement, the price tag is likely to go up as a result. So we're monitoring that and working on that situation to see what we can do.
And the funding for that, is that prorated or is that a flat fee so the overage is gonna be on us?
So the funding currently is through congressional spending earmark funds. The 1.7 million, I think, is what was through the congressional spending. That was expected to cover the full cost of the project.
She must have put us on hold.
She put us on hold. Under this, with this new requirement, it's not likely to cover the whole cost. We do have funds available through grant, we received 2 million from EPA, from DEP. Last year, we utilized some of those funds for the Water Street pump station, which actually came in under budget, so we didn't use as much as we had planned on. And we had tentatively earmarked some of those funds in anticipation that the 1.7 wasn't gonna quite cut it based on experience with this type of project. So we do have the DEP funds available, but again, right now, we're not sure what this is gonna do to the bidding process as far as, I mean, if there's only one bidder, then, it's likely to drive the price even higher. Hopefully we can get the situation straightened out so that we'll get more than the one bidder and we can get some competition. But if not, the one bidder who was still in the game was T-Buck, and that's the company that did the Water Street pump station. Again, came in under budget, so the hope would be that even if they have to increase the amount of their bid in order to, meet that requirement, that we can, between their efforts and that DEP money, we'll be able to bridge that gap. So
They're a good company too.
they did an excellent job
Yeah,
on Water
good
Street,
company.
for sure, and they were good to work with. Mike worked very closely with them, and they made some changes at his request, some of which were, didn't require change order for additional funds or anything, so they worked very well on that project, so. That's all I have.
Michelle?
Yeah, the only question I had was about the budget, and the formatting of the budget. Last year, we had talked about adding the actuals as well as the budget amount, or just the actuals rather, in previous years, rather than the budgeted amount. And the other thing that we had discussed in the budget last year was, adjusting some of those outside services. So like that Heart of Ellsworth and the Chamber and some of those others that were put in with social services or in other areas to just have one area. And so I've been thinking about it, and I was wondering if we could have a community development section where it would have like the Grand and the Chamber and Heart of Ellsworth and some of those others that do development and they bring people into the city, but they're not a social service and completely different. If there was a way that we could set those into its own section.
Sure,
Yep.
I think that's a good idea.
Thanks. So, yeah, perfect. Because last year, if you remember, Heart of Ellsworth was in 3 different places in the budget, and it was confusing.
I'm trying to make the budget a lot more straightforward.
I
This year,
appreciate that.
it's just a matter of, getting that data moved over. That's why I'm doing lots of accounting right now, as much as I loathe it. because it's gotta get in there, and I wanna see it. It's easier to do the budget when you actually know what you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said, last year it was confusing on how much money we were getting. At one point, we were giving Heart of Ellsworth because they were in the recreation, they were in, I think like under the social services, and then they were under another section.
Yeah, I'd love to give it all its own section, if you're.
No, I think that would be perfect.
And then
So that
break
way
it
we
up.
can look at what
Yeah.
they're proposing, what they're requesting,
Yeah.
the different programming that they have, and then have an understanding of what we're funding and what we're not funding.
Did you look at the new form that I did for for outside requests? It's on the website.
Yep, I did.
So it has more for you guys to
That was
look
more social
at.
services than some of the other programs, but are you doing one for everything?
Yeah, for outside services, yeah, just one,
Okay.
because I wanna see kind of what our ROI is, and I noticed a huge disparity in, kind of making their case for money, so I feel if they're more organized in their fundraising, they're probably more organized in running their organization, which means
Yeah.
our dollars go further and have a greater impact on the community.
Yep, I agree.
Anybody from the public?
Mark?
Mark?
Oh, Mark's fine. Michelle, you want a phone call in a few minutes?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
The only other thing I did have, that I just wanted to mention was, and mostly this is for Steve, but we have, lined up initial union negotiation meetings for Public Works, Fire, and Wastewater, all on the same day, February 1st.
At 11.
Starting at 11 and going through till 1. Those initial meetings usually don't take, I wouldn't anticipate that they'll take an hour, so we probably will get those done more quickly. Because the initial meetings, we set the negotiation teams and the ground rules for the negotiation. Some of the unions, I think wastewater will probably have an initial proposal. I mean, not wastewater, Public Works will probably have an initial proposal. Fire and wastewater are less likely to be that far along in the process to be able to provide us a proposal, so.
Do you remember if the sidebar that we did with the highway public works, is that must line up with the original contract?
So the sidebar expires
With the contract?
with the contract.
Okay, thank you.
So those items will be first and foremost negotiated, yeah. So they were specifically, it was specifically designed so that going into the next negotiation, those would be on the table for negotiating.
Blend everything into one? That's good.
That's all I have.
All right.
Any questions on the warrant?
No, the one we had was answered, so,
Okay.
yep. Okay.
Yeah, we had some big ones, the PNC and.
All right. Bye, Michelle.
See you later.
Bye,
Bye.
Michelle.
Goodbye.